Good morning, App Properties. It's Friday, May 8th. It's a little brisk outside, but the sun is shining, so I'll take it. I'm joined by Kevin Van Eck, who is live from downtown. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Coffee with Amy and Kevin. Morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Amy. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Yeah, sun's out. It's great. It's a little bit chilly. Summer or spring or whatever season is next will be coming at some point. But for today, we're going to talk about messaging. And effective messaging is always important in any scenario, but especially over the last 5 weeks, we've been doing more and more communicating about what's happening in our world in real estate and what's happening in the world in general. And having to be able to communicate that to our clients effectively has become increasingly important. So we want to always ensure that we're sending the right message. And today we have a special guest with us to help us do that.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I'm excited to welcome Peter Olesker, our Executive VP of Corporate Communications. Peter's been with App Properties for over 10 years and has played a critical role in our company messaging and overall communications. Odds are, if you've been with App Properties for at least a few months, you've used some sort of communication that Peter and his team have put together. So good morning, Peter. Welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We're good. We're good. We see that you're at home, and we appreciate that you are joining us this morning to talk a bit about communications and, just sharing a little bit with App Properties about what you do to help make sure we're positioned extremely well out there in front of Chicagoland. So App Properties, right. App Properties has such great messaging, and we get great coverage in a lot of the publications, and we are in a lot of great articles. We all get inspiration in different places. Where do you go for your creative ideas and the things that you come up with for App Properties?
Thad Wong's brain.
I like that.
Yes. Honestly, it really, I don't have to go far to get inspiration for the work that we do. Fortunately, there is so much good stuff happening within this company. And there's just a lot of sources of good stories, I think. And a lot of that stems from Mike and Thad. So, I read a lot. I read a lot of the industry publications, but I don't have to look to, another company to think about what to do for App Properties. We've got a lot of good stuff going on here.
Yeah, that's really cool. We know that they're the ones, Mike and Thad, that, had the vision for the company to start with, right? So continuing their message. And we know that Thad Wong is, like you say, is never short of new ideas or creative things. So with that, as you have these ideas and you're writing or you're writing a script for a video, what is your process? What do you go through in terms of from start to finish as you think through a project?
Sure. Well, I think the way I write for App Properties today is very different than it was, back when I started at the company, or even before that. I was a consultant that was doing a lot of work for App Properties. Back then we were primarily a city company. We had a younger clientele. We were smaller, less established, which is to say that I think the process is one, I'm really thinking about the audience. So sometimes we're writing for a city audience, sometimes we're writing for a suburban audience, sometimes we're writing for home buyers, sellers, agents. So I really think about the audience, one, and then I'm thinking about what we want to accomplish. Like, what's the result we want to get out of this? So you're not just writing to write, you're writing to persuade or to get somebody to take action or adopt a certain point of view. And then when you know those things, you want to make it interesting. So that's where things like emotion and relatability or humor come in. Really, the personality of the company, the personality of the brand is really important, and I think it permeates everything that we do.
Yeah, I think that is so important, having some sort of personality or, like you said, humor that really engages the audience. I think especially because we know the average attention span has been shrinking over time, probably because there's just so much that comes at people from a communication perspective. How do you keep readers and watchers engaged in the content that you put together?
Well, hopefully we do, first of all. But I think it does come down to a couple of things. I think one is emotion, like people don't want to read dry writing. They want to, I mean, like I always say, like I want it to crackle, I mean, like you really should feel something when you're reading what we've put out, hopefully. I think another really, really important thing is storytelling. I attended a seminar once. I don't remember what it was for. I don't remember who it was with, but I remember like the seminar leader said one thing. He said, if you want to get people's attention, ask questions and tell stories. So I think storytelling is really, really important to any type of writing, whether it's a press release or an email, even social media, any of the blog posts that we do. I think storytelling is really key.
Yeah, that's cool. And we know, we were talking about the attention span. It's funny how we can watch, 46 episodes of a TV show straight in a row, during the pandemic, but it's really difficult sometimes for people to watch a 3-minute video. So what you're doing and what you're creating for At Properties is great because it's engaging. And one of those things is the At the Market. And so the question I have is, when you're writing a script for a video, like At the Market or another video piece that you're doing, is there a different perspective that you take when you're putting that together?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. There is a different process, I guess. With At the Market, it's a little bit different because it is kind of linear. It's almost a news show. But for most videos, let's say a listing video or an agent profile, or my team does a lot of profile videos for developments, the process is much less linear. So we're really thinking in terms of shots and letting the pictures lead us through the story. And I think it's almost like, like announcers for a sporting event. There's play-by-play and then there's color commentary. I think video is more of the color commentary. Like you don't need to, let's say you're showing a kitchen, you don't necessarily need to say this kitchen has white European cabinets and stainless steel appliances and concrete countertops, because people can see that. So, what might be more interesting is talking about what could occur in that kitchen. If it's a family that's cooking or a dinner party or something like that. I think that's, a much more compelling way to get through a video, to present a video.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. I think particularly right now where, with COVID-19, I think so many of our brokers are turning towards how to communicate online, virtually, using methods or, ways like Facebook, Instagram. And so it's interesting. I want your perspective, with everything you see, what do you think brokers out there should steer clear of when they're creating content, whether it's video content or they're writing something? Kind of what are some tips that you would give them to make sure that what they're putting out there is compelling?
Yeah. Well, I think number one, mistakes. Try not to make mistakes. I mean, that's something we were all taught when we learned how to write, spelling and typos. It's not going to kill you, but people notice. And that just takes a little bit of time or some extra effort. Or if you're not the most detail-oriented person, then it's having somebody else look at it, before you put it out there. I would say, yeah, mistakes is a big one. And the other thing is I think people, they see through BS, right? I mean, we're talking about this article yesterday that had a statement from a certain CEO of a certain real estate company, and that had just disbanded a certain program. But, we all knew that that program was gone because it was probably a bad idea from the start. And, this current crisis just really exposed a lot of the flaws in it. But the statement just wasn't genuine. The language wasn't genuine. So I think it's really important for people to be true to themselves in their communications, because if you're not, your audience is definitely going to see through that.
Right. Everyone's drawn towards authenticity, right? So with that, what have you seen? Because what you see what brokers put out, you also see what other companies put out. Is there anything compelling out there that you've seen that you think agents and brokers we can emulate?
Yeah, I'll start with an outside example, and then I'll talk about what is cool that I think some brokers are doing. So I'm wearing this shirt. It's from this company called Cricket. And I've been wearing like a lot of these shirts lately. It's almost like Garanimals for like suburban dads. But the reason I was like drawn into it, like a moth to a flame, is because they create such a cool story, such a cool like aura around their brand. So it's like, a bunch of like dudes hanging out, drinking beers, chipping golf clubs, throwing horseshoes or whatever. It's just like it's a very romantic version of just kind of like a casual, easygoing life. I think it's a company out of Austin, Texas. I think like Ralph Lauren did a brilliant job of that. Probably one of the greatest like brand storytellers, that ever was. Just kind of creating that like emotional scene, Americana through different eras. So I think those are some outside companies that I've drawn inspiration from lately and in the past. But in terms of agents doing a really good job of it right now, I think some of the videos that we've seen lately, like Susan Naman, Kim Latka in the western suburbs, and Susan is on the North Shore, have done a really good job with videos, like talking about storytelling. It's not just kind of a chronology of their career or like a biography. It's really like in a minute and a half, you get a great sense of who those people are. Really good storytelling. And I think Courtney Murray is doing a great job with her marketing. She's really focused on social media. She's done some really cool things. Rick Richker is another guy. I'm in Glencoe, so I see a lot of Rick stuff. And, it's like really straightforward, but it's genuine. So, he kind of is just putting himself out there as this local guy, suburban dad again. Maybe I can relate. But, it's nothing fancy, but it's good, genuine communication, and it's working for him.
Yeah, I think that you hit it right on the head when you referenced relatability. I think that's the biggest thing, is for people to probably just be authentic, have their true voice, and be relatable. You obviously related to that Cricket ad as a dad who likes to golf and drink beer and hang out in cool shirts, I guess, right? So we see some brokers who are consistently being quoted in articles, and they're appearing on news and on TV. And I know personally, I've had a lot of agents who have asked me, how do I get into the press, whether it's because I want to help a client get some exposure for their property, or they want kind of their own press as they're trying to build their brand. If a broker felt like they had some sort of value to provide, how would they go about getting that kind of exposure? What are your thoughts, or what's your advice to them to trying to get into the press?
Sure. Well, I think the most important thing is that they should be reading what they want to pitch. So if you want a story in cranes, you've got to be reading Crane. You've got to be reading Dennis Rodkin. If you want to pitch something to Curbed, you've got to, really, brokers should be reading The Real Deal, Inman, Curbed, Cranes. Some of those are behind a paywall. Get a subscription. CS, North Shore are some free publications, and if it's local news in your area, read that, of course. So, and the reason you want to do that is that the beats. So there are, like, over the years, we've pitched many stories to Cranes that were good stories, but they just aren't what Dennis does. They aren't what Cranes does. Dennis Rodkin is the real estate editor over there. So, it's like he said, this is a good story, but it's just not something I'm focused on. So you really have to know the beats. And then from there, I think you have to really be critical of yourself and know if it's a good story or not. So like just yesterday, one of our brokers emailed and said they had a couple of ideas they wanted to pitch. One of them was really it was about a listing, and it was really more of an ad. It wasn't new on the market. There was no price change. It hadn't sold. It was something that had been out there for a while, and it really just felt like more of an ad. But the other one was cool. You know, it was a trend that was happening. And so we talked about how we would package that. So I think it's a good story for television, so we're going to pitch it to TV. But yeah, so I think you need to think about, well, so you need to understand the beat, you know, and how to package the story. And then I think it's easy to pitch it.
Peter, thank you so much. Your insight today has been really, it's going to be really impactful to anyone that watches this. And really kudos to you and your team, because everything you're putting out, everything that you're developing, from videos to the press release to the exposure we get, helps all of us when we're growing our business. So thank you, Peter.
Thank
and
you,
for everybody watching. Yeah, Peter, thank you.
I was just going to say, with you and Amy and Thad and Mike, and all of the managers at App Properties and the agents, honestly, it makes our job a lot easier, because, you know, it's much easier to write about things that are interesting and real, and we've got a lot of that going on. So thank you.
To everybody watching, thank you for watching. It's Friday. As we head into the weekend, I want to remind you of a couple things. The first is, do it now. So hopefully you've been doing the morning routine every day and creating consistency that way, and continue that through the weekend, because that's how you build habits, etc. So if you do it through the weekend, you're going to start out next week strong. Also, over the weekend, take a look and really reflect upon what you've been doing this week. Look at the homework that we talked about this week in terms of business development, and take a look at what you have accomplished and maybe what you still can do over the next couple of days. And then on Sunday morning, you're going to get an email again that asks you a little bit about what you feel you've accomplished this week and some success stories that you might share. And we really want to encourage you to do that, because, again, sharing success stories is what not only inspires all of us, but helps us learn what else we might add, implement, and how we might change our business to all grow together. So thank you for joining us. Peter, Amy, have a wonderful Friday.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Make it a great weekend. And remember, just get out and do it.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Amy.